From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Anxiety Project podcast. Welcome to episode 330 of the show. I am Brad Robinson. I am so grateful to be here with you today. And if you're listening to this at night, good. This is something I used to do when I was suffering from anxiety. I would put on anxiety recovery podcasts and I would fall asleep because they would comfort me. They were the gateway to my higher self. I was suffering so deeply that I couldn't sleep. I was up, anxious, worried. And the thing about anxiety is it gets to a point where the people around you that you care about, that you love, don't know what to do about your situation more than you do, and it's terrifying. That's what really shocks people, the existential angst of the limitations and finite world that we do live in, but also the infinite world comes crashing down onto you, right? Like everything that was irrelevant before becomes relevant when you're suffering from anxiety, when you're really suffering. So today we're talking about night anxiety. We're talking about when you can't sleep, when you're dreading the night and you're dreading the next day. Yeah, it's no joke. So if you're listening to this at night, I hope that it brings you some comfort as these podcasts did for me. And well, we're going to shed some light. We're going to shed some known territory into something that is for you unknown, that's very unfamiliar. And hopefully it can help you get to sleep. And we're going to talk about perspective too, because the thing about not sleeping and all the pressure I put on myself when I would try and get some rest, it was no joke. And I couldn't sleep because of the pressure. If I talked to myself differently, which I eventually started to do, but at first I was saying, oh no, I'm going to make a fool out of myself at work tomorrow. Oh no, I'm going to be so tired. I can't function, can't operate. I have no motivation, this and that. Yeah, it got to a point where I actually didn't even go into work because it got so bad. I would just call in, or I wouldn't even call into work because at the time I had a job that was call in, like a daily call in job, because I was working in the film industry and in this electrical department in IOTC in Toronto. And you call in to make yourself available. And at one point, I just didn't call in. I was living with my folks. I'm okay. I can, go a day or two, 3 days, 2 weeks, a month without work. And it got to that point where I was just suffering so bad, and the world just grew and grew and grew and more and more of a larger dragon, right? And I didn't want to leave my house. Too scary. Too scary. The more you avoid something, the more it grows in size. Something I learned pretty damn quickly. So I would pace around at night contemplating, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I called into work. Now I'm you know, I got confirmed to go on a job tomorrow, and now I can't sleep. Oh my God, I got to be somewhere at this time tomorrow. How am I going to get to bed? What if I make a mistake tomorrow? And that would be circling. And then I shifted my perspective over time where I've started to view the anxiety, the days ahead that were full of challenges as opportunities rather than predatory entities. Very important. Because in my anxiety recovery, I became so bloody tired of being a victim in my own mind. I was so tired of it. So at one point I said, you know what? I hope I get a panic attack today. I hope that the anxiety demon is going to pop up so I can face it and prove myself that I could handle it, that I can tolerate it. Because at that point, I was leaning on my family for reassurance, leaning on things, staying at home, in particular. And those are the big things a lot of anxiety sufferers do. They lean on the people that are comforting, and it makes sense because think of when we were kids, when we would first move out into the unknown, into the playground where all the other kids are playing. The child looks back at his or her parents. Hey, like, is it safe? Is it okay? Are you there? So I can go into the unknown and come back to you. And so we think that these things don't exist when we are older, but we're a lot like our younger selves. This is the thing, is we think that we're, just because we're 30 now, we're not like our 10-year-old self, but a lot of us are like that. The emotions and the experiences that we've had. And a big part of life is to learn to thrive and be independent. And a lot of people don't end up getting to that point. They realize when they're 30, 40, 50 that for decades of their life, they were just holding on to things to soothe, numb, and distract themselves from discomfort, things that they experienced when they were children, maybe bullies and traumatic experiences that we all have, by the way. And we don't look into it, and we don't realize that the trauma projects out from us, right? So we get bullied from someone who's aggressive. We later in our life don't want to be aggressive because we associate that as being bad. But we don't harness the positive aspects of being aggressive. So we end up being pushed around, and then we lose respect over ourselves when we get pushed and when people walk all over us. So you have to learn to harness the positive aspects, because there's two sides to everything. If you're too overly agreeable, you got to harness in on that more assertive side of yourself, properly harnessed. It's like the fire, you don't just play with fire. You got to learn to control and master fire so you don't get burned. And a lot of people, will avoid situations, or they will perceive the opposite sex. Maybe they were abused in some manner as a certain way, rather than and then generalizing that outwards into the world, saying all people are this way, all of this culture is this way, all men are this way, all women are this way. So there's a lot to trauma, right? People have to unpack trauma. People have to take the lessons from this trauma. They have to master the trauma. And the first thing to do is to peer into the trauma and learn what happened, how you wound up in that situation, and how you can avoid this in the future. That's a huge thing, because the mind keeps the trauma because it doesn't want to fall into the same scenario again, because it was so painful. Pain sticks within you. It's an entity, it's an energy. If you want to read a good book on it, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Amazing book. So the trauma is a living embody. I love the image of the golden snitch from Harry Potter as trauma, round chaos, right? It flickers because the trauma does flicker, right? It shows itself in our conscious state. And it comes up from the unconscious, and it flickers and it shows itself, and then it goes back down, and we notice it, but then we push it away rather than unpacking the golden snitch and seeing what's inside of it. The new self is what's inside of the snitch. That's why the resurrection stone is in the snitch near the end of the Harry Potter series. The new self emerges from round chaos, from what you attend to that is terrifying and unpleasant. You unpack it, you'll find a new version of yourself that you've been avoiding. So we always have to see the double sides to ourselves. And, we have to understand what happened so that we can let go of that, because it's a weight, it's a burden. And the reason why I'm really diving into trauma is because it keeps us up at night, right? Because try going to bed at night when there's a snake behind your refrigerator. You're not going to bed. You're not going to bed until you get rid of that damn thing. So at night, I talk to a lot of people, and people that can't sleep, there's always a commonality. Their nighttime rituals, a big one. What they do during the day, huge. Because what you do during the day, you know, it reflects on how well you sleep at night, and vice versa. So we have to pay attention to the stressors, and we all don't want to acknowledge a lot of the stress because it's painful, obviously. But if a lot of things are stacked up in your life, a lot of to-dos, you're not going to bed because those things are predatory entities. They're painful. You got to write them down. You got to organize a list. You got to take care of that list during the day. So, yes, there's a snake behind the refrigerator. You're not going to bed until you take care of that damn thing. And there's a lot of to-dos on, your bulletin board in your mind. You got to take care of each one of those to-dos. You got to write them down. That's a big thing at night. So if you're struggling to sleep right now, a big thing to do is just write a list of all the things that's worrying you in your mind. All the stuff. It might be preposterous to write something down because you want to say, "Oh, that's not even a big deal. I'm not even going to write it." It's a big deal. Trust me. Just write it down, even though you don't want to. It's kind of like, ugh, I want to stay away from that one. You write it down because it's a release, right? It's like when you take all the unwanted folders from your desktop into the trash and you empty the trash. There's like, it's like gone, right? It's this release from the mind. The mind is very cluttered, right? It's like a desktop that has too many folders and files on it. You want to organize that thing. And the best way to do that is writing down. This is foolproof. It's very important that you do this. So you write each thought. Good. You don't have to solve it. But what's also an interesting thing about the mind is that when you do write it down, you look at it from a different perspective and the mind starts to solve it once you write it down. It's a very weird thing. It's like, whoa, where's the mind going with this? It's like it's starting to unpack the thing that you're writing down. So it's a good release, right? Because you don't have to then hold on to it if it's on paper. Because the mind likes to hold on to so much and it'll flicker one thing, flicker another thing. It'll keep doing that. But if you write it on paper, it's like you don't have to think about it anymore. It doesn't have to come up in the mind because it's on paper. You can look at it whenever you want. It's there. So that's huge. And then trauma, right? Stuff that has happened to you over the past year, 2 years, or maybe since you were a child. There's a lot because when the lights go out at night, a lot of people perk up and start to get anxious because it's just you and your own mind. It's just you and your own mind. What are you going to do? Watch TV? I had a TV in my room. Big mistake. I remember so many nights just watching TV because I can't sleep. What does the TV do? It stimulates you. It has the blue light that, suppresses melatonin. You're not going to go to bed so easily. It's distracting. It's just, it's a bad idea. So don't do that. But a lot of people just can't sit there or like not eat something because that's also another bad idea. Eating something. I used to go down and make toast and stuff, which is bad for you. But I didn't know at the time. I was just like, maybe I should eat something. It's like, no, that didn't help. So what I do at night, I'll give you my routine. Okay, this is what I started to do, and it helped right away. It helped. So I would give myself an hour before bed to just relax. I had this, what would you say, persona that I created for myself that I was very amused about. I referred to myself as the king of relaxation. I'm going to be the king of relaxation. So I started to light incense, candles. I would draw a bath. I would reduce the lights so it'd be nice and dark and moody and relaxing, and put on some very soothing music. And I would get in the bath, take some breaths, put in some Epsom salts in the bath. And then I would meditate, do some breathing. I started to do breathing exercises as well. Wim Hof breathing, deep breathing. Relax the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, because the stress response bleeds from the day into our time when we're sleeping. And then reducing caffeine. I started to not I started to move myself from coffee, which I absolutely loved. It was like the highlight of my day. Double coffee a couple times a day. And then reduced that to decaf. And then eventually I just switched to some tea, preferably green tea, because I feel like still there's a lot of caffeine in the black teas. So I introduced some green tea later, but it was a process because I went half and half, half decaf, half regular coffee. That was good. It still helped, but I was minimizing it throughout my weeks. That started to help. And then the big thing is keeping sleep time to wake time, keeping that consistent. Now, I had a very interesting job, right? I was working in the film industry. I was in the camera department in IATSE as a camera trainee working on television shows in Toronto. So if you don't know, the film industry schedule is very interesting. You'll work 14 to 16 hours every day, 14 to 16 hours a day. You'll come home and there's a turnaround time. So I can't remember how long the turnaround time is. I think it's like 8 or like 10 hours. I think it's like 10 hours. So you get home as fast as you can, to get some sleep. And then there's a turnaround time where you're going to start a little bit later the next day, right? And then so by Friday, you're working till 4 a.m. and then coming home by 5 a.m. And so that's the typical week in the film industry. And so I was working that, and it was irritating. It was fun at first, but I started to see everyone on the film set as my future self, the older people working on the film set. And, a lot of them I admired because it's a tough job. They were highly skilled. It's impressive to see people who are good at their job do what they do, and especially at a job where it's so intense and time sensitive and very physical at times. It's very impressive. I was very impressed, but I did see myself in them, and and by the end of like the second month of the show, they get worn out. They get worn out, and I was feeling it. It was tough. You're walking around. You really feel like you're running on no sleep, and it gets very challenging. And so I started to question my choices around this job and career. I started to see myself as like that 50-year-old man working on that film set, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this, because I started to value my anxiety recovery. I was going through anxiety recovery at the time, and I decided to pursue the anxiety project, pursue my own path around helping people, because I wanted to live a very structured life, because there's too much chaos. Like having a schedule like that it's all over the place. I wanted structure. So having a schedule where I can go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time regulated my circadian rhythm. And it really does make a difference. Your body gets used to the sleep pattern. So it's more likely going to fall into deep sleeps, and and eventually you wake up automatically. Sometimes my alarm wouldn't go off and I would wake up around the same time I would usually wake up anyways. And it's amazing how your body regulates itself and knows how much it needs. And it's very interesting. It's very good for you. So even if you can't sleep, it's important to set the time anyways to a certain, waking up at a certain time, very important, and try and get to bed around the same time. But the getting up time is so important. Getting up time, keep it the same. Even if you're waking up during the night, you're not sleeping properly, just get up anyways at that time. And if I wouldn't sleep at night, which sometimes you do, especially nowadays with a baby around, I feel like keeping that same wake up time is crucial for me. It's crucial because I can always take a nap in the afternoon, right? And if you don't have the luxury of doing that, which sometimes I don't because I work another job from this one, I still feel good. I still feel energy, like I feel good because I'm on a strict diet too. That also helps. I don't eat sugar and I don't eat carbohydrates. I don't eat those things because that's what works for me. So that helps. So so I found a good system for my body to keep me in a healthy state physically and mentally. And so keeping your wake and sleep times the same, very important. Even if you can't sleep, still get up at the same time so that your body gets used to it. And excuse me, the first few nights where you set that schedule is going to be rough. It might be a week that's rough, but your body is going to get comfortable with it in time. It'll adjust. It's always tough at first, even when you introduce anything new, really. You're starting to meditate or starting to go to the gym, you're starting to implement a new diet, cold showers, whatever. It's difficult at first. It's an adjustment period, but your body actually adapts. That's the amazing thing. The body adapts. So, around the night routine, at the time of my anxiety recovery, I was listening to anxiety podcasts at night. I was listening to binaural beats or soft meditation music as I was lying in bed. And then I would do deep, relaxing breathing as I was laying there. And then another thing that really shifted my sleep patterns was my self-talk, because there were so many times where I was lying there and my thoughts were racing, no matter how nice the bath was or the meditation or the journaling. That was all good, but then the thoughts come, right? They come. And then it got to a point where I was so fed up that I said, you know what? I'm just going to surrender. I'm not going to fight you. I'm done. I was just so angry that I just surrendered. I surrender. I kept saying this mantra: I surrender. I let go. I surrender. I surrender. And then next thing I knew, I was asleep. I was asleep. So it's your mind, right? The mind has the tactical advantage over you. It really does. It has all of your weaknesses and insecurities and fears and all of the things from your past that give you goosebumps. It has the tactic in the mind will attack you at your weakest. So for me, I had all of this stuff happening at once, right? And I was lying in bed and I literally was so angry that I surrendered to everything. And I fell asleep. And I would breathe and I would say, I surrender. and I would breathe and surrender. And now we have to talk about the things that you're doing during the day. Because if you have things that you're avoiding, maybe you need a job, and you don't know what's going to happen, or you don't know what, if your future looks uncertain, it's going to affect your sleep. Obviously, because it's such a weight. It's a stressor. It's the golden snitch, round chaos flickering about in your mind. So I remember at the time, I didn't really have a job. I was uncertain about the film industry. I wasn't liking it. It was very difficult to do, but also I didn't see myself continuing. It was too uncertain for me. I wanted certainty. I wanted a structure in my life. So I was looking for other work. And this really does help your anxiety, because not just finding work, right? It's just sorting through the things you're uncertain about, whatever they are, whether they're on a relationship, whether they're around school, work, where you live. There's so much to unpack. So you have to look into each one of these things. And so during the day, I would set aside time to go look for a job, what's out there in the world, going on the internet, going on Google, searching for work. At the same time, I started to take classes, things that I'm interested in. I'm interested in anxiety and helping people and starting the anxiety project. Great, I'm going to take an online course. What courses are out there? What NLP, CBT, that this was all happening. So having things to do, having an aim during the day is so important, because if you don't see yourself moving towards something, you're not going to get any positive emotion. There's no positive emotion if you're stagnant. That's depression. Depression is being in a tight corner, not knowing where to go. You need somewhere to go. And you experience a lot of anhedonia when you have a lot of anxiety and depression, right? That's this numb, like not feeling any emotion, down. You're feeling like, I don't know what to do with myself. Uh, Life is difficult. Life is painful. It's this numbing, the no emotion. You're not getting any positive emotion, right? In a state of anhedonia. So you have to move yourself during the day. Start locally. This is so important. Start with your room. Start with the things around you. Peterson, right? Dr. Jordan Peterson, adamant about this. And, I learned this from his book, 12 Rules for Life. You start locally. If you don't know where to go, if you're like, oh my God, the job market and the schools and the programs. I had a client recently. He's a young guy. And he's been following me for a long time. And I've had him years ago. And then I started coaching him again recently. And he came to me with this exact problem. He had trouble in school. School wasn't working out. A university wasn't working out for him. And then he didn't know what to do in the job market. He was engaging in a lot of bad behaviors like nicotine and weed, alcohol, pornography. So as soon as he started the coaching sessions, I told him, like, look, you got to take a step back a bit and look towards yourself rather than all of these things that are scattered out in your horizon. Because if there's too many things in front of you, that's anxiety. You have to shrink back and start with the self. You got to take care of yourself first. It really does start like from you. Start locally. What can you do around you today? You don't have a structure. Like the first things he started to do, which was, he was like, okay, yeah, locally, I could really get rid of the nicotine. It's a problem. And it was definitely a problem because it was uncontrollable. It was controlling him. And then the weed, and then the pornography. And so I just talked to him recently, and he gave up all of these things. It's been over a month now. It's been a month. I can see it in his eyes. He's focused. He has a goal. He feels good. He's like, yeah, once I feel like I'm competent, that I can conquer the local things that I can't really control, now I feel more competent to tackle the more larger things in front of me, like a school program or getting a job. And now he's focusing on just getting any kind of job so that he can just build on his competency, just doing something, right? And this is something that I had going for me back when I was, starting the anxiety project. I went back to this retail job just down the road that I had when I was, God, like early 20s, when I was in high or university or college rather. So I felt like this ego kind of like, oh yeah, hey boss, it's me. I'm like 26 or something, 27. Hey, I'm coming back to this, retail job, and it was like this huge hit on my ego, right? But I knew, like, Brad, you have to start from square one. You have to just get something so that you can build up competency. You show up on time, you show up early, you do a good job, you make friends at the job, you learn responsibility, and then outside of the work, you then build on the things that can help propel you towards larger goals. You need some things locally to build upon larger things. You can't just jump into this, you know amazing, all fantastic job. It takes a long time. You have to build on competency. And so this is what I did, and it really did help me. Like in Harry Potter, the fifth book, it's a great example where the school of Hogwarts, it turns into a tyranny. And Dolores Umbridge is that very person that turned the school that way. And she banned Defense Against the Dark Arts, where the students are now deciding to do it behind the scenes, even though they're not allowed to. But they knew that they needed to learn the proper techniques and strategies to defend themselves, because they knew Lord Voldemort is out there with his minions, and they're going to come eventually. So what keeps Harry from leaving Hogwarts is the fact that he's working behind the scenes on himself and the people around him. He's working on himself while living in the tyrannical school. And that's really what it is, psychologically, right? We know that we're incompetent. I certainly was. I knew I was incompetent. I knew I had a long ways to go. I had all these insecurities, traumas. I felt insecure, social anxiety, you name it. But I knew that I had to work behind the scenes on myself. And then that would build outwards in society. That would build outwards in my job, in the things that I do every day. And once you work on yourself, like if you're working a job that you don't really like, and it's like, I don't really see myself doing this, you go look for another job on the side while having that job. And it's going to make you feel a lot better. It will make you feel a lot better if you know that you're actually engaging in something better, that it's like, you don't realize it, but you're showing yourself a lot of respect, even though you don't know it. You do feel it. Like you feel like, yeah, I do deserve better. Once you take that step, it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm looking for another job, right? It might take you a long time. It might take you months. But if you know that you're putting in that effort, you're bound to get something out of it. You will, 100%. You're going to be good at sharpening up your resume. You're going to be good at what job interviews if you do a few or many. If you do a dozen, you're going to be great at job interviews. There's always a benefit to going out into the unknown if you don't like the tyranny. That's the Israelites in Egypt, right? They leave the tyranny, but they wind up in a desert. And that desert period is like you typing up the cover letter and, spending time Googling jobs, and it's pain. I've done it so many times. It sucks. It really does. But I knew that this is just what I need to do. It's better than the tyranny. It's better than staying at a job and putting up with it. So this helped me sleep. I had something to do. I had an aim. I had goals. And if you don't have goals, if you have to-do lists that are stacking up miles high, how are you going to get to bed? If there's things that you don't like on my job, my relationship, you got to write that down. You got to take care of that. You got to take care of that. That's not good. You have to take it seriously. Treat yourself like you're someone that you care about. And the last thing I do want to touch upon is that if you are getting very poor sleep regularly, then sure, that's going to increase your anxiety. It's going to increase the sensations and the discomfort and the aches and pains. So do what I say, in this podcast, re-listen to it. And if you do these steps, and if you are consistent, you will get to where you need to go. Even if it seems hopeless, your sleeps are poor all the time, there's something that you're holding on to that you need to let go of. You need to change your habits, the caffeine, the drugs, the alcohol, the lifestyle. You need to add the structure. You need to add the relaxation. You need to add the goals. And you need to add the self-talk of letting go and take control of your life. Thank you, everyone, for being a listener, being a supporter of the show. I love you all greatly. Rise above anxiety, and good night.
Brad's powerful anxiety recovery program is now available at unpluganxiety.com. The Anxiety Project program is downloadable and puts the power of anxiety recovery in your own hands. Visit unpluganxiety.com for more details. Recovery starts now.